President Trump's Commerce Secretary pick Howard Lutnick will appear before the Senate Commerce Committee for a confirmation hearing today. Questions about Lutnick's financial holdings and tariff agenda expected to be front and center. Joining us now, Republican Senator Eric Schmitt of Missouri. He's a member of the Commerce Committee. Thank you for being here. What was your number one question for Mr. Lutnick?
Well, I think he's had a long-standing relationship with President Trump. He's had a storied career, of course, with Cantor Fitzgerald, very successful, and everybody knows the story after 9/11 and what he did to support the families who lost loved ones on the day that worked at his firm. So he's had this wealth of information, and I think how he's going to bring that to the Commerce Department. It's a very important department. I think he'll be a close advisor of President Trump. Clearly, as relates to trade policy, that's going to be front and center. But I think Howard's going to do very, very well today. I expect smooth sailing. This will be a committee hearing this week that will go well. I think he's going to have the support. And then you're going to have the other ones, of course, with Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that might get a little bit more attention on the evening news. But this is an important position and really a great American, I think, that stepped up to serve his country here in Howard Lutnick.
Yeah, it's certainly important for our audience. And tariffs front and center here as well. We talk about it every day on CNBC. I, too, was born in Missouri, born in St. Louis, and I know that the farming community in the state is quite strong. And I'm curious what your constituents share with you about concerns surrounding tariffs, retaliatory tariffs, and the like, and how you plan to address those with the prospective nominee.
Yeah, I think the overwhelming sentiment in states like Missouri is that we just want to be treated the same way that folks treat us, right? I think that reciprocal policies are important. I think Americans are kind of tired of being treated unfairly by other countries, Europe and particularly China. I think that you just see some of the developments, whether it's DeepSeek or the Panama Canal. One thing those things have in common is we are in this great competition with China to win the 21st century. It's going to be defined by who wins this. They're in space in a meaningful way. They're competing with us in AI. We've never had a competitor like this that's a nuclear peer, that's a military peer, and an economic peer. We've never had that. The Soviet Union wasn't an economic rival. And so I think we're in a real race with China. So the constituents back home, and I think across the country, just want America to be treated fairly and have a trade policy that reflects that.
So do you think tariffs are that trade policy that reflects that? And I ask because it was the Commerce Department that put forth those export controls on advanced chips that ultimately, it remains to be seen what ultimately happens with DeepSeek and kind of how they were able to do this and at what cost. But there are a lot of questions surrounding export controls and whether those were successful in mitigating the Chinese competitiveness in some of these advanced AI models. And I'm just curious kind of what you think is the appropriate approach as we look to protect U.S. competitiveness in AI.
Well, I think targeted tariffs, Howard's been on your show before and kind of explained his position. I think that's President Trump's position to be targeted about this, widely speaking. I think you saw the impact it can have even this weekend with the Colombian president who refused to take criminals from his own country back. President Trump threatened a 25% tariff and to suspend visa applications, and voila, they came to the table. So I think it's very effective as a negotiation tool, but I also think to level the playing field, it's very important. I think on the chips specifically, that's a national security concern, and I think certainly warranted. We need to build more things like that here. We need to bring our supply chains home to the extent that we can. I think that's all part of this overall trade policy. But I do think tariffs shouldn't be a four-letter word. They're going to be utilized under the Trump administration. I think they're going to be very strategic about it.
Your colleague, Senator Elizabeth Warren, has been probing Lutnick over ties to Tether, which is a cryptocurrency that allows people to move money anonymously, and therefore it's kind of seen as this go-to cryptocurrency for criminal activities. I'm curious if that's a concern of yours as well.
Well, I think Senator Warren has taken a position. She really wants command and control as it relates to crypto, and that's certainly not where I stand. So, look, she's going to have her questions today for Howard Lutnick, and that's what these committee hearings are for, to sort of air this out, to have questions be asked and answered. She's actually not on the Commerce Committee. I noticed that she's raised those issues. But I think the broader point here is, a centralized command where you have social credit scores as relates to crypto is not a direction we want to go. It's probably where China's headed, but I think America can be the leader in crypto, and that's the direction of this administration.
How can they be the leader in crypto? What do you think this administration needs to do?
Well, I think what you saw was there were these artificial restraints that were put in place under the Biden administration because they were very skeptical. But I don't think you want this sort of, again, sort of centralized crypto bureaucracy here in the United States. Are there going to be regulations? Of course. No one's really arguing against that. But I do think China's headed in the direction where this is also a way to control your population. And I don't think that's sort of the American view of it. And I think President Trump's been pretty clear about that on the campaign trail and now that he's in office.
Broadly speaking, in terms of trade and kind of the more protectionist posture, are you worried at all about inflation or economic growth as a result of those?
No, I think, look, President Trump did this the first go around, and we saw record wage growth. No matter your population, no matter your gender, wages went up for everyone. We were able to actually onshore more production. We saw our dependency on China go from about 22% of imports to about 14% of imports coming from China. That's a good thing. I think COVID exposed some of the vulnerabilities in that supply chain. We're way too reliant on China for pharmaceuticals. We're way too reliant on China for things we need to build jets, to build things that are in our military. So I think having a policy that's smart, that is about fair trade, and you also have additional trade barriers that China puts in place, highly subsidized. They, sort of flood the market, dump the product, and copy. I think, intellectual property protections are going to be an important part of the discussion, too, that Howard Lutnick, I'm sure, will have opinions on. But I think we've got to be smart about it. And I think we have to understand that China is hell-bent on world domination, and our trade policy should reflect that.